¿No te vas a ir para allá? Deberías de ir.
Ya te cocinó.
Ya. No te estamos corriendo, pero ya vete.
Te gusta, joder.
I consider myself a human being, and as well as, so I treat everyone the same. I go to church, maybe you go to church, I believe in God, maybe you believe in God. So it's so many similarities. I don't think, to say something about me in personal saying is just put yourself like, as who you are. And the only thing that changed is that for the legal system, you don't have any of the right documents, and I would say in quotes, the right documents to be here.
Immigration issues were discussed long before 2010, but in that year, Arizona passed a bill that brought the issue to the forefront of public debate. The law required law officials to search anyone reasonably suspicious of being undocumented, a requirement that even the Obama administration feared would lead to racial profiling. In 2011, 5 Republican-led states passed immigration laws similar to Arizona's. Mississippi sought similar legislation in 2012.
This bill came about over a couple of years. We had a huge amount of people unemployed. I had a 14% unemployment rate in my district. And when you would ride around in the community, I had a lot more illegal immigrants working and I thought those jobs would be best suited for legal Mississippians who were looking for employment.
In March, the Mississippi House of Representatives passed HB 488, known as the Mississippi Support Our Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act of 2012. It allowed police to question the legal status of anyone during a legal stop, mandated schools to require proof of citizenship before students could enroll, and made it a civil penalty for any employer to hire illegal or undocumented workers. This is a story of why that legislation failed to pass into law.
When we first got here, most of our clients were Mexicans. Most of them were maybe in their 20s and 30s, and most of them were agricultural workers. But it's really grown and developed and changed over the years. And today I would say that most of our clients are working in the hospitality industry, in hotels, in housekeeping, or in groundskeeping. We have a number of people who are in construction and a few from who also are in agriculture.
I came to America in 2007, June 2007. I used to do public areas, kind of like cleaning the machines and stuff in the casino for over a year. And then I started doing housekeeping about 2 months now. It's kind of like cleaning companies that they send people to the casinos, places where they ask for people. So I just went and applied to the company and they sent me there to work.
I came originally to California. Then they offered me a job to come here to Mississippi. I didn't know where Mississippi was, first of all. So, but they say, hey, it's a lot of work over there. Come on, let's go. There's blueberry farms. I had done watermelons. I had done strawberries. Sugar cane. I mean, whatever is there. Because I moved from one place to another, so it's all around, whatever form of work is, So I would say, 12 years I have been around.
Representative Becky Curry of District 92 and other Republican representatives like Brad Mayo of District 12 saw HB 488 as a way to ensure Mississippi workers filled Mississippi jobs. But those representing farmers and businesses thought differently.
If you really want to go deep into the immigration issue in our area right here, as I talk to legislative people and try to educate them to the impacts of our industry, we advertise for local labor before we can bring in H-2A workers. And we may get one or two or a few folks come in, they may work a few hours, it works too hard, they'll quit. So we do not have a labor force. Show us our labor force is all we ask people to do. And so far, that labor force has been H-2A workers.
According to the U.S. Department of Labor, H-2A is a temporary agriculture program that establishes a means for agriculture employers who anticipate a shortage of domestic workers to bring non-immigrant foreign workers to the U.S. to perform agricultural labor or services of a temporary or seasonal nature.
You have many segments of this economy in this state, especially the chicken processing industry, and we're second or third in the nation in chicken production right here in the state of Mississippi. You have a lot of them that would have to shut down if it wasn't for immigrants that work in their plants and the processing end of their industry.
If the state of Mississippi drove, the very generalized estimation of 40,000 undocumented workers out of Mississippi, then 70,000 jobs that in some way are associated with it would be lost in Mississippi. It wouldn't be where people would come and get those jobs. And an example, a very good example, was done by the United Farm Workers Union. Most of their members are undocumented in California and Texas and so on. You hear all these complaints, well, if we got rid of those people, the Americans would come in and take their jobs. So they advertised nationally on the internet and various other sources for people to apply to work in the union farm. Well, they had 30 people that, nationally mind you, 30 people that inquired. There were probably 3 or 4 that were actually hired by one of the, by agricultural companies. None of them lasted, more than a week.
But the Republican representatives see it differently.
I think for the long term, it had the potential to benefit our economy. I do think you may have to offer higher wages than what the employers were currently paying. But yes, I do think Mississippians would fill them, and if they didn't, legal immigrants, whether they move here from Alabama or whether they come in from a foreign country, those who legally come here to make a better life for themselves could fill those positions.
Representative Curry says nationally, Americans are supporting the undocumented, not the other way around.
They say it's 12 million illegal immigrants. I beg to differ. I would say it's 40 million. And it is a huge stress on our economy. They have the jobs, they have health care, they have education, all of the things we're in here today fighting about and trying to pay for. It's a huge stressor on our and the taxpayers that are going to work every day, and it feels like the hamster on the wheel. How much can you keep taxing people to pay for all of this? I don't know how long we can keep going. I know I'm spinning on there as fast as I can.
They pay like $9 an hour. It gives you so you can pay your bills, but it's not like you're gonna have money left to save or do stuff that you wanna do.
Do you have medical insurance with your job?
No.
No. And is it considered a full-time job?
Yeah, it's considered like a full-time job, but you never know, because if the company loses the contract with the casino, you're not gonna have no job because the casino's not gonna keep you unless you hire directly from the casino.
Contrary to what Republican representatives say, not all undocumented workers expect the state to pay their medical bills.
If something happens, yes, I had to pay my expenses. I work as basically by myself. I hire my own self, because when I pay my taxes, that's what I do. I pay it, so I don't, because I go ask for jobs to different places, so I just basically, I had to be responsible for my payments in case I got sick.
The Institute for Taxation and Economic Policy shows that undocumented immigrants paid $8.4 billion in sales taxes, $1.6 billion in property taxes, and $1.2 billion in personal income taxes in 2010, for a total of $11.2 billion paid into the government.
Most illegal immigrants pay taxes. In Mississippi, for example, illegal immigrants make up about 10% of the budget in terms of their revenue contributions, right? So, because they never get to file for their tax returns. So unlike 50% of Americans who pay payroll taxes and then get almost all of that back in terms of tax returns because of income credits, child credits, mortgage reductions, all of that, illegal immigrants who use fake Social Security cards pay payroll taxes and get nothing back. And on top of that, of course, they pay state taxes when they go buy things, and all kinds of other taxes too. So they make up they're less than 1% of the population of Mississippi, but they pay 10% of the budget.
They're here buying things, and that's all good, but they don't have. I have 40% of my check is taken. They take out FICA, Social Security, state, and federal tax. Do they pay state tax when they go to buy goods? Yeah, but that's not contributing when they go to the emergency room or they go to the hospital and have a baby, and immediately that mother is put on Medicaid, and so is that baby. They can say they're paying taxes all they want. They're not paying what you and I are paying. And so it is not fair.
Documented hotel worker Elizabeth is a single mother to a child born in America. While her son receives Medicaid, she does not.
The immigration system altogether needs reform because it hasn't been upgraded in over 20 years, and it no longer meets, if it ever did, it no longer meets the needs of either the United States economy and the people that employers need for jobs, nor the needs of immigrants or intending immigrants.
Townsend says each year the United States issues a set number of visas per country. That number is limited, however, and as a result there is a backlog. According to Townsend, that backlog increasingly causes spouses and minor children to be left waiting for a visa for 5 to 7 years. But some get tired of waiting for documentation and come to the U.S. anyway.
It's not like we just have these hordes of people rushing in to take over our country. A large number of them are people who already have a connection, already were going to be able to come. They just couldn't wait any longer. And, that's unfortunate, but it's our broken system that makes it that way.
E-Verify is a Social Security Administration program that can be used nationwide by employers to check the eligibility of employees. Mississippi is one of many states that require licensed businesses to use the program.
I think the state has approached the immigration issue really from a baseless standpoint. What I mean by that is I think somebody woke up and decided that Mississippi had an immigration problem. And to my knowledge, we really don't. Now, certainly, I'm an advocate of strong federal immigration laws. That's the position that I've always fallen back on. And you've got E-Verify, that's the federal law now. I think that the movers and shakers that promoted all of this immigration law were doing it, number one, from a pretty strong racist standpoint.
The Pew Research Hispanic Center reported in a recent survey that during the 5-year period from 2005 to 2010, a total of 1.4 million Mexicans immigrated to the United States. That number was down by more than half from the 3 million who had done so in the 5-year period of 1995 to 2000.
Particularly Mexican immigration to the United States peaked about 20 years ago. In fact, more Mexicans are going back to Mexico today than coming to the United States. That has to do with the fact that the Mexican economy is actually doing better than the American economy, and so they're better off going back, ironically.
HB 488 was the bill that we called it the racial profiling bill, that was going to require law enforcement, local law enforcement, to somehow determine whether a person was here lawfully or not. I've been doing immigration law now since 1998, and I can tell you that it's not an easy thing to determine whether a person is here lawfully. It can be easy. I mean, if a person is a permanent resident, has a permanent resident card, or if a person is here on a work visa and they have their work visa, that's pretty easy. But there are a lot of people who are here in a more nebulous situation, local police officers don't have the training they need to be able to determine if a person has lawful presence. And what is the key? What is going to make them suspect that a person is not here legally? The only thing we could come up with is that they looked foreign. Well, that's racial profiling.
You know, we got everything from police officers who could not enforce this, cities who came out rapidly against it, municipalities that have to enforce this archaic law that you can racial profile just based on what a person looks like, just automatically assume that there's some kind of problem. That's so arcane to me. I just can't, I don't have that feeling about me anywhere. And furthermore, it's worth fighting for. To try to educate those that do feel that way, that it shouldn't be that way.
Are our illegal immigrants probably predominantly a different skin color? Yeah, I think they probably are. But at the end of the day, they're illegal.
I don't care if you're blonde hair and blue-eyed from Sweden. If you are here illegally, you have broken the law. And it's not directed at anybody with a different color skin. I have black grandchildren that I love dearly, 2 of them that live with me. I have a Hispanic brother-in-law, love my brother-in-law and my nieces and nephew dearly. It had nothing to do with the color of anybody's skin, and I think that's kind of a cop-out answer, quite frankly. I felt like I was on board. I was more of on the cheerleading side of the immigrants who didn't count. They don't exist. If they're raped or their child is abused or something happens badly to them, they can't go to law enforcement because they're here illegally.
Opponents of HB 488 don't believe the bill would have compelled immigrants to report crimes or seek government protection.
Every community of color has had a reluctance to call the police on something. If something gets really bad and out of hand, yes, but most crime that's committed in communities of color goes unreported.
When you hear a police car, you kind of always like try to, you know, don't run, because if you run, you are already suspect, you know. But it's something, you feel it. It's like you're not running from the people who are going to harm you, but you're people who are supposed to protect you. And it kind of is contradictory to say that, but it is what happens. So with this bill, it will be very hard for us as immigrants to report those crimes because you are afraid to the police.
Mississippi's had a bad reputation for so many years because of our history with civil rights violations. We don't need to go down that road again with the most recent newcomers here. Anybody who was here after Katrina knows that it was immigrants who cleaned up the coast. And without their hard work and their willingness to live in practically subhuman conditions while they did it, we'd still be piled under tons of debris. So for people then to turn around when we no longer need them and try to make life miserable for them so they'll just go away, to me was reprehensible. And I just thank God that the bill died and didn't get passed.
This whole movement of the last really 10 years, but more significantly the last 5 years, the rise of the Tea Party and the far-right conservatism got them the numbers that they needed because it enticed and excited people, and they voted against their own economic and moral and even spiritual self-interest, really, to propel these folks to the majority. And now they're going, uh-oh, that's not what we realized they were talking about. And immigration's a classic example of that.
Republicans had a majority in the House and in the Senate in the 2012 session. HB 488 passed with a 70-47 vote. However, the bill died in a Senate committee. The reason came down to a difference in political ideologies. Key players in the bill's demise were Republican Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves and Democratic Senate Judiciary Committee head Hob Bryan of District 7.
While Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves could not be reached for comment, Senator Hob Bryan did send a statement via email saying, "My recollection is that Other than the required arrest, almost everything in the bill was already on the books.
I think that there were some reasons that Lieutenant Governor Reeves had that bill killed, and make no mistake, I believe he had it killed. It wasn't that Hob Bryan did it, it was because Hob Bryan was given the chance to do it. I think that the Lieutenant Governor felt that there would be negative economic consequences of it.
The Republicans took control, so they elected a Tea Party person, Philip Gunn, to be Speaker of the House. He in turn appointed primarily Tea Party people to lead the committees. On the Senate side, Tate Reeves is not a Tea Party person. He's more of a Haley Barbour person, you know, the business mentality. So he referred, you know, he was more bipartisan in his committee appointees, so he appointed Hob Bryan to be chair of the Judiciary Committee be on the Senate side. Hob has been one of the white legislators that's been sympathetic to immigrant issues. Tate Reeves assigned the bill that was passed by the House to Hob's committee, and Hob deep-sixed it.
We passed a couple of immigration bills last year, and the Lieutenant Governor is against them. So whatever we pass in the House, if the Lieutenant Governor kills them, then I put the House through a lot of debate and time and taxpayers' money, and for it to get killed in the Senate. And there's just no reason to do that.
Alliances between Democrats, African Americans, and the immigrant community can be traced back to the 1960s and 1970s, when black workers formed labor organizations, such as the Mississippi Freedom Labor Union. That group connected non-English speaking Latinos with non-Spanish speaking African Americans and formed a political bond. These unions received help from people like Chandler, who later helped form the Mississippi Immigrants' Rights Alliance.
So we intentionally created an organization that was black and brown because you could see into the future that a combination of a large African American population and the growing number of white people that were not afraid to vote for African American candidates running statewide, and then you had the growth of the Latino community, and you put that all together, you have a different kind of electorate than we've had previously that's been dominated basically by white supremacists.
The Nation reported that in the past decade, the alliance of Democrats, the Black Caucus, and the Latino community led to the demise of over 200 anti-immigration measures.
The priority that we have to have is to make sure those bills don't pass, and that gives space, limited as it is, to the immigrant community to settle and flourish in Mississippi. And of course that leads to, you know, the fear that the white supremacists have of African Americans, liberal whites, and Latinos getting together. And one of the things that really scared them in the 2008 election, in the general election, you know, CNN and CBS did exit polls, and they found that 4% of those who voted in that election in Mississippi were Latinos. And out of that, 87% said that they had voted for, 87% of that 4% said they had voted for President Obama.
I just think that group has just been beaten at their own game is what it amounts to. Their racism was revealed in such a spectacular way that there was no way they could put any coating or dressing or roses or flowers or any pontifications on it that really erased the core issue, which was racism. And again, right prevailed, you hope, in the end. And I think I'm going to be surprised if we see much more in the next couple of years on immigration, really.
Although no immigration bills were introduced in the Mississippi legislature in 2013, House Republicans have differing opinions on if there will be any future legislation.
We have a lot of state contracts that we could control, that I know that every citizen out there would love to see Mississippi people that are looking for jobs to be able to work under those contracts, especially with our tax money. And I foresee something like that probably getting passed if I could get it past the Senate.
It's not a priority for me. You know, there is the possibility that they're going to come up with a solution in Washington. I wouldn't give it a 50-50 chance, but there is a chance that they'll come up with something, and if they do, that will fix the problem.
I never thought I would be stay here a long time. So, you know, I thought I would be here only for a couple of years. But you know where you have your place where you always want to go back.
This
so.
is home.
This is home for right now, yes.